Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational 80 podcast. We'll be right back with today's Wednesday Wisdom guest. But as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. I really feel strongly that you're going to love them too. So listen to our messages, then listen to the segment, and then go and visit these sponsors. You're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes, your coaches, or your parents, you're really missing out. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you. They're going to connect you to the people you already hear from, complainers, the ones that want to gripe about everything. But that's only a small percentage. They're also going to connect you to the 97% of your stakeholders that love and support your program. And that information is tremendously valuable when you're talking with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create that custom survey that'll help you take your athletic program from good to great. We also want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. And it's a platform you're going to use, like I did, every single day. How about things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Communicating with parents, with coaches, with kids, uploading rosters, digital forms, you name it. Home Campus does it and does it better. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We also want to thank Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then ended up with little, if any, return on your investment? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with tremendous success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out all of their great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. snapraise.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Hometown Ticketing is digital ticketing that offers more support, more service, more customization. Go to hometownticketing.com to get started. We also want to say thanks to our friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. It's a great way to show off your school record boards or your school's Hall of Fame, or simply showcase your school's outstanding students and their achievements. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com to get started. Mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. Vital Signs Wall of Fame. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their scoreboards in action. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that let them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, turn your school into a Huddle school. And we want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the official social media graphic solution for us. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to help you create world-class content to help celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Gipper is used and trusted by over 3,000 high school and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com to get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational 80 podcast. We've got one of our original contributors, one of our favorites. Regular listeners will recognize the name Michelle Meyer as part of our Wednesday Wisdom team. If you're new to the program, Michelle was a college athlete, a college coach. She was also the director of NIL for a Division I athletic program, and now she is the founder and the head of the NIL Network, kind of a clearinghouse for all things NIL, particularly at the college level. Also does a lot of instruction with coaches, with athletes, and anyone who wants to learn more. So, Michelle, welcome back. It seems like every time we talk, there's something new going on with NIL, particularly at the college level. So, what do you have for our listeners this week?
Yeah, I mean, it never slows down. And it's interesting now, I guess for probably like the last 6 months, I've started hosting these state of NIL meetings once a month where for the members of NIL Network, they come on, we have a discussion about everything that's happened, and it's a guided discussion. So I'll pick out the topics from the past month and then kind of lead that discussion. And what's always so interesting is when I start to really put together that list of topics. I'm always like, and we've had another full month of, just new things that are coming up. I mean, not only within just the NIL space, but college sports in general. And yeah, we're always moving and keeping things fresh.
Well, you and I were talking before we started recording about, I think you used the term the Caitlin Clark effect. So I love, everything associated with this. What can you share with our listeners?
Yeah, so I think our last couple of talks have been very legal focused around, so a number of the different lawsuits against the NCAA and kind of this evolving legal landscape. And I think it would be nice to mix it up today with more of a, I don't know, a positive take on the whole landscape of college sports. And that is, I mean, the phenomenon of what Caitlin Clark has created with Iowa. Her what I really, really love about this, and I love about Caitlin Clark, obviously she's become a household name, right? She's got a massive personal brand. She's got great NIL deals, national brand sponsors and whatnot. But what I think is really impactful about Caitlin Clark's success story is not only, these partnerships and this massive audience that she's been able to build, but also that you look at all the games and you see all of these young girls who are looking up to Caitlin. They're holding up signs, like Caitlin is their idol. And what I think is really cool about that is that these young athletes looking up at Caitlin, that to them is something that they aspire to be, right? And to them, looking at her celebrity, and then also the different kind of brand deals she's been able to get, they say, okay, if I'm a basketball athlete, if I'm a women's basketball athlete in college, that is a possibility for me as well. Like I can access those kind of brand deals. I can also work with my community in those kind of ways. So it becomes this really tangible thing for these young athletes, aspirational to look up to her for. And what's so powerful about that, and we've already heard from the WNBA commissioner a couple of times talking about how, and like the legalization of NIL at the college level has incentivized these women basketball players to build their personal brands, to engage with their communities, and to build their followings. And so now when they graduate out of college and they get drafted and play in the WNBA, Commissioner is saying, they're bringing these audiences with them. We are going to be able to sell more tickets, which will increase also our corporate sponsorship deals, our media rights deals. Like everything comes back to the fans. And before really this, I mean, NIL has pushed us to a new level, but even before, we've moved into this digital era where athletes, really any celebrity, can communicate directly with their fans and build this community. We like the real brand of, let's say, WNBA and professional franchise was so hyper focused on just the franchise overall and not necessarily the athletes. And now, because of digital age, social media, and now pushing this into NIL, it's really coming back to the athletes and their brands, and they're able to build, especially in our nation Olympic sports, build up those sports, those leagues, franchises, and organizations because of the audiences that they're bringing. So going back to Caitlin, what I love about, I mean, women's basketball players in general have killed it in NIL, more so I think than any other sport. They've really leaned into it. I think that they've always, there's always been this culture in women's basketball of building community, engaging with the audience, but now it's like hyper, I don't know, kind of exploded there. So what is, yeah, like I said, like these young basketball girls looking up saying, this is the thing for me. Now they are focusing on how do I build my community? How do I position myself for NIL opportunities once I get to college? And I think that that can translate really well into other sports. Like I previously worked at USA Volleyball, and I'm telling them, like, this is an opportunity that if, let's say, young junior volleyball players are looking at college volleyball players and they're getting good, NIL opportunities, good brand deals and whatnot, then those young athletes will say, that's a reality in my sport. Maybe that's something that I want to position myself for. And what that does overall for the sport in general, now we have, let's see, 350 Division I college volleyball teams, let's say 4,000 total players. Now, all of them are not going to have, of course, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're not all going to go pro. But if you look at it from, just the depth of spread out across 4,000 athletes who now even have a 10% increase in their followers, let's say, like what can that do for the overall growth of the sport? Because they're sharing content of, their media days, their game day photos, and it's just getting more exposure for the sport in general, the school they play for, that program. And yeah, I think it's something that like might not be an opportunity forever because NIL is still so new that if like, let's say the young volleyball athlete is looking up and saying, well, I don't see many volleyball athletes getting deals. That's not a thing for our sport. Then if they don't like lean into it as much as the girls basketball player athletes are doing it, and then you're not going to get that same growth opportunity. And I think it goes for the sport in general. I think it also goes for looking at, all the professional volleyball leagues that are launching, but any real professional league that is in a niche Olympic sport, like should be looking at this as an opportunity for growth of the whole sport and franchise. So I think Caitlin is a model for that. I also love, everything that she's been doing within the community of Iowa. Like she is the superstar and has been such a great role model for really everyone. So I love her story. I love following her along, and I love what she's doing for not only for women's college basketball, but just women's basketball in general and women's sports in general. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And again, you and I were talking about our mutual admiration for Caitlin Clark. And we talked, or at least I mentioned this, that next year when she goes pro, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. She's going to get drafted by the Indiana franchise, and I'm sure they are already selling season tickets. So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of economic impact that she has on that franchise and that community, and her own endorsement deals, I'm sure are going to increase. You talked about volleyball, and we've seen events like the outdoor volleyball game at the University of Nebraska and similar types of events, but you haven't seen a corresponding, let's say, player or players from the volleyball world capitalize on that. Um, and another point, I'm actually going somewhere with this thread. You talked about, the rapid changes in NIL from, let's say, year to year. Now, you've been involved since the beginning, and your focus, as you've shared with me, has always been on the student athlete and helping them find and get opportunities. Where do you see NIL going, let's say in the next year, if that's possible to get your crystal ball out? Is it going to continue to grow, as some coaches would say, out of control? Is there going to be some scaling back? You're our expert, so I'm asking you, where do you see it going in the next year or so?
Yeah, I think that as we've kind of discussed on this previously, in my opinion, there's two kind of separate markets being called NIL right now. One being the one that your coaches are saying are out of control, which is more of the donor-funded NIL collective model. Now, and then of course we have what I was talking about, Caitlin Clark, where it's brand partnerships, endorsements, sponsorships, with national brands, regional, local on that side. So I think like this side, the collective, the donor driven side is that is really, really hard to predict where that goes, because there are so many forces pressing against that model right now, in terms of, like Charlie Baker has a new proposal that would bring NIL in-house. I don't know what that does to the collectives. There is, the IRS is saying, should they be nonprofits? What if we take away their nonprofit status? We don't believe this is like fits within the realm. And so what does that do to the donation model? If most of the donors are doing it for a tax break and benefit, number of other things. So that side has so many forces pressing against it that I have no idea where it'll be in a year. Will the collectives come in-house under the university? I mean, it's hard to say. Another crazy thought I had was if stuff doesn't come in-house back to the university, what does that look like for even a potential like new model of college football? Most of these collectives are football and basketball, where potentially a lot of people are calling for this right now, where football separates from the NCAA. Like, are the collectives then positioned to be that kind of entity that would be managing football on behalf of the school, where they're licensing out, the marks or whatnot from the school, and they're paying those athletes as employees of this collective model? I don't know. We'll leave that one for now. On the other side, the more traditional, brand partnerships and sponsorships and whatnot. Since the beginning of the year, from the conversations I've had with people who work directly, with brands and with athletes, so the marketplaces and agents, and even like some of the NIL directors around the country, everybody separately, and I haven't even asked this, they've just brought it up, have said, we have seen more brands interested in NIL reaching out and wanting to jump into this space than we've seen in the past 2.5 years. And none of us have been able to put our finger on exactly why that is. Like right after the turn of the year, that there has been this like surge of interest from brands, like all the way from local level up through national level, of wanting to get involved in this. And I don't know, like I would say maybe they finally felt confident enough that things have settled, but things haven't really settled at all. So I don't know what the deal is, but I like that direction here, the way that it's gone.
Oh, my goodness. I think we can all agree that, and again, Caitlin Clark's at a different level, but the NIL success stories that we do hear about with, let's say, the non-football, non-revenue sports, I think most coaches, most ADs want to see those continue to grow, to see the athletes get some kind of benefit, some sort of payback, if you will. The coaches are making their millions, maybe the athletes can make a few bucks too. The football thing, as you said, that's a completely another level. And I don't mind saying, it's out of control. The conference that I grew up with, the Pac-12, disintegrated because of TV greed, and I'll throw NIL in there too, maybe incorrectly, but the only safe thing to say is that the next time we talk in about 2 or 3 months, that we're going to have something brand new to talk about regarding NIL. For our listeners, as we stated, Michelle Meyer has her finger on the pulse. She was a D1 athlete. She was a coach. She was the NIL director for a Division I school, and now she's the founder and the director of the NIL Network. Michelle, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about the resources that you provide, or just maybe pick your brain, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think probably through contact form on my website is probably the easiest way. So that's just on nilnetwork.com, and I think under about is where they'll find the contact form. Send that over with whatever questions, and I'll try to get them the best answers I can.
Okay. And Michelle's also fairly active on social media too. You can find her there. Michelle Meyer, the NIL Network. Thanks again for sharing with us, and all the best with all of your future endeavors.
Thanks, Dick. Always fun chatting.
For listeners, we appreciate you listening. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. Come back next week for another great Wednesday Wisdom segment and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. Hey, before we go, let's give another shout out to our great sponsors, Huddle, Hometown Ticketing, Snap, Raise, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, Gipper, Home Campus, Sideline Interactive, and Athletic Surveys by Life Track. Once again, these are all companies that I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. Thanks again for listening to the Educational AD Podcast and this Wednesday Wisdom segment. We'll see you next time.